Hey guys. So I'm on my way to a doctor's appointment. I have no kids in the car with me, and that's totally rare, so I thought I'd make a video really quick. We did a homeschool orientation day yesterday, and I was really excited about somebody giving me the idea to do it because I've never done that before. And I just wanted to share that real quick with y'all. So this friend said she heard of someone doing a homeschool orientation week, like the whole first week. I just did a day, although I am gonna try to keep a lot of grace in that first week, and just, maybe lighten the schedule a little as we're easing back into the school year. I will tell you right offhand that we don't drop off everything in the summertime. As the kids are getting older, I'm seeing that it is really helpful for us as a family to just do some light schooling about 2 days a week. And I keep my morning basket time. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it, but we do morning basket almost every morning, just in a light way. We don't study Shakespeare in there like we do during the school year. I'm dropping out some of those things, but reading good literature, doing our prayer and Bible time, those things we just try to keep in the summertime mornings because it helps us so much to have some structure to our days. And I think I heard somebody say recently that, is it really a good idea for anybody to have complete purposelessness for 3 months? Like, probably not, right? So, and as homeschool parents, we're the ones who have to deal with getting back into the groove of school. We can't just send our kids somewhere for a teacher to deal with getting them back on a schedule. We're the ones who have to deal with it. So it's kind of helpful to not completely jump off of the bandwagon in the summertime. Anyway, so we do a little bit in the summertime, and we really view life in general as school, and we're always learning no matter where we go. So we have a much more relaxed school year probably than even a lot of homeschoolers. We do our vacations during the school year. We take a week off every 6 weeks. So we're continuing in the summertime, and it's really more of just kind of a balance in both areas for us. So back to the orientation day. What I actually did yesterday is I laid all of the school stuff out on the table. When they came down to breakfast, they saw it, and I'm not gonna lie, I got a groan out of my third grader. He was like, "Oh, we're starting school today? Oh man, I didn't know." He was totally bummed. And that was really a good thing for me to see that. I was glad that it wasn't the real first day of school that this was happening, because I was like, okay, we're not doing school today. I'm just going to talk to you about what we're doing for each one of our subjects, what our daily schedule looks like. I'm going to post it on the fridge so you'll know what's coming each and every day, and you can get used to this idea of what we're going to be doing, and you won't be just blindsided. And so when he groaned, I was like, okay, let's talk about that. Why did you groan? And it's not actually because he dislikes anything about the way we do school. It's really more of I just kind of want to be lazy thing that we're dealing with him right now. And those character issues, I think a lot of times if some character flaw comes out in our kids during math time and we're just really struggling with them, we think it's math. It's like, oh, we need to change curriculums. Why is math so hard? Blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times it's really not. You kind of have to separate. You have to walk away from the math book and separate this character issue you're dealing with from school, because it's not always school. It may just be a heart issue that we need to deal with. And if you just kind of take a step back and maybe don't do anything drastic about the problem right away, but instead sort of think about it, start paying more attention in other activities through your day, is that same character issue coming out? So it is. It's something we've noticed lately, that we're having a little bit of laziness that we're dealing with our eldest. So there's always going to be just things like that pop up. So that's something that we're going to have to work on. But not to get confused with maybe you're using the wrong curriculum. You might be, but sometimes we just sort of get confused with the character being something wrong with the way we're doing school. So anyways, we kind of were able to talk about that, because I was like, do you not like this? Do you not like this? Whatever. And he was like, oh no, I like all that stuff. There was nothing wrong. He didn't dislike any of the curriculum we were using or any of the way we were doing anything. Anyways, that was a rabbit trail. But so I was glad to sort of address the groan and the hesitation from him. And I think that one thing for my eldest, his personality is he needs to know what's coming. He needs to see the schedule and prepare himself mentally way ahead of time. He does not like surprises. He doesn't want you to spring something on him. That is his personality. And having an orientation day for him was extremely helpful. He was like cool with it. By the time the orientation was over and I had explained it all, and gotten his input about what he wanted to learn about this year, because we are implementing some unschooling. You know, I'm letting them decide on the animals that we learn about each week in science, because we're doing a study of creatures created on the 6th day. Anyways, getting their input and valuing their opinions about things. To me, it was so beautiful to be able to do that with them. And I think it's so funny, I didn't even think about ever doing an orientation day before, but I think as homeschool moms, sometimes if we've been planning and preparing our own hearts and minds for months about the coming school year, for some reason we're forgetting that we haven't done that with our kids. Like, our kids haven't been planning for months like us. Our kids have no idea what changes we've made or what new thing is about to happen. We just tend to kind of spring it on them. First day of school, let's get started. This is what's first, and this is what's next, and it's like bam, bam, bam. And it's a little overwhelming. I mean, maybe some personalities of kids can handle that better than others, but I could definitely see it would overwhelm me. So I love this idea of orientation and taking things slowly at first, getting back into that schedule and that groove and that rhythm. And we did some fun little interviews. I actually videoed them because that's just a fun keepsake, to have the recording of their kind of get to know you back to school questionnaire for the beginning of the school year, asking them what their favorite book is and their favorite TV show and their favorite color and all these things. Plus, I added in, what would you like to learn this year? You know, what do you think that you need to work on? What are you proud of about yourself? All of those things. It's so neat to have your kids start realizing that they can set their own goals and that they can not just depend on you entirely to lead their education, but that they can actually have a part in that. It's a really great thing. So another thing I wanted to mention real quick in this video is, I say real quick, I'm not good at being real quick about anything. I just kind of talk a lot, sorry. Anyways, I did want to give some book recommendations to new homeschool moms. So I have a lot of friends starting their first year of homeschooling, a whole lot. And some of my seasoned homeschool mom friends, we had a meet and greet. We had a meetup this week for back to school, and we're able to encourage each other and stuff. And we were discussing, I was like, guys, I want to know what y'all tell new homeschoolers as far as curriculum. It's so difficult for a new homeschooler to wrap their brain around the way that we homeschool, because we do not do a big box curriculum. We do bits and pieces of different things, and it's a collaboration of like what methods work for our family and all of it. And that is so overwhelming to a new person, and I totally get that. So a lot of us were like, well, you know, we were kind of stewing over the question, like, yeah, what is the thing that you should tell people? And a lot of us were like, yeah, sunlight probably is what I direct people to the most, because that's the closest to what we do as a family. It is a Charlotte Mason style literature-rich curriculum. But one thing about sunlight is the weekly, first of all, it's expensive. It really is if you buy it. Now you can look at it and just do it on your own. The book lists are online, and you can, they have you choose like between a few math curriculums. They don't even provide that, I don't think. But you can just really do all that on your own. But one thing that's really difficult about sunlight is the weekly schedule is super overwhelming, even for me in my 4th year of homeschooling, and I was homeschooled myself. The idea of homeschooling has never overwhelmed me because I was raised that way, and even I'm still intimidated when I look at that planner. So for me to lead a new homeschooler that direction, and for them to see it, it scares me that it's going to make them just throw in the towel and be like, I can't do this. Like, there's no way, because it's overwhelming, and it's not actually something you have to do. You can just do your own thing. Reading 2 pages of this book today, I don't like somebody to tell me that much detail. If my kids want to keep reading in something, I want to have the freedom to do that. So it's just one of those things. It's like, I'm a kind of an organized person by nature, but I still don't like that type of micromanagement within our homeschool. I like to be a little bit more student-led with some of those things. So anyways, we were discussing it, and we were like, yeah, a lot of us end up having our friends start with Rebecca, and then, you know, they migrate. They eventually evolve into realizing they like certain other ways of teaching math, whatever, you know, and they end up dropping it all together after a couple of years. And it's totally okay to start from that point. One of my best friends started from that point. She's like, yeah, you know, I couldn't start any other way. I was raised in public school. I needed something traditional. So it's okay. But we were kind of talking about it. And so later, my mom friend that's homeschooled for longer than me, and she's always giving me such great advice, she texted me and she was like, you know what, I was thinking about that question that you asked, and I think I've come to the conclusion, instead of leading someone to a particular curriculum, I think I would rather really encourage them to read For the Children's Sake, which is a book by, I want to say it's Susan Schaeffer Macaulay, maybe. I'll link it below. So that book, For the Children's Sake, is the title. That actually, I think it comes with some like starter kit, if I'm not mistaken. That book is a really good place to start. It's a good place to lay some framework for how we view children. That may sound too basic, but how we view our kids and how we view educating our kids and viewing them as a whole person, and not squandering their childhood by making them sit at a desk instead of getting to be out in God's creation. Just those basic things and the reasons why we want to homeschool. What is our motivating factor? That is so important. We're not going to stick with it if we don't know why we're doing it. So that is definitely where I recommend that people start. Go read that book. It's really important, I think maybe once a season, as a homeschool mom, to just read something like that that's going to encourage you and motivate you. I have a few others that have really been life-changing for me. That's definitely where I started, was For the Children's Sake. Another one that's really great to help you, it's super, super short, which is awesome, and it helps you really define why you're homeschooling and what you want from the experience. It's called The Unhurried Homeschooler by Durinda Wilson. I actually just read it a couple months ago. It's called The Unhurried Homeschooler. The subtitle is A Mercifully Short Book on Homeschooling, which is so cute because there's all these books out there and some are super long, and it's hilarious how she realized that as a homeschool mom, she didn't really want to read a long book, and so when she came around to writing one herself, she made it mercifully short, as she says. But it's a really great, basic, easy read. It's going to help you so much to establish some goals for yourself and all of that. And it's really just going to help you get a direction going with your homeschooling. So another one that I recommend for just anybody, no matter what stage of life you're in with your kids, it's Mere Motherhood by Cindy Rollins. It's phenomenal. It's like one of those just life-changing books. There's a Facebook group for it. It's really impacted a lot of moms. It's fantastic. I can't say enough good things about that book. Really, any of these books, starting with any of these is probably fine. The next book that I would recommend is Teaching from Rest from Sarah Mackenzie. Sarah Mackenzie is the lady that's over the Read Aloud Revival community and podcast, and you guys probably are sick of hearing me talk about her and that community, but I'm a little obsessed. They're amazing. They're just, everything she does is amazing. Her book is great. I probably would not start there. To me, Teaching from Rest is one of those things that a lot of us moms that have been doing it for a little while, we really need that talk. It's like giving us some freedom in our homeschooling and helping us cultivate this environment of grace for our kids to learn in. So it's this beautiful experience. She was our speaker, one of our speakers at Cumference this year, and she gave a talk that was really similar to her book, Teaching from Rest. And by the way, really short read. I did the audiobook and she is the narrator, which is also always great. Only, I want to say it's like 3 hours and something minutes long. It's really not a long read at all, and it was so awesome. So, but in her talk, a few things that I took away from her talk that I think at any stage you can implement is, she said, think about, first of all, what are you passionate about? And I think she said, raise your hand once you have it. What are your hobbies or your main hobby, and what are you most passionate about? And nobody was really raising their hand, and she immediately said, like, that's a red flag, guys. You shouldn't be losing your identity as a person just because you're a homeschool mom. What do you like to do? Have you forgotten what you like to do? Like, think about, she said, if you can't figure it out, think about what did you like to do before you had kids, before you started homeschooling. And it's crazy how we do tend to lose our identity sometimes. But so we all started thinking about it, and I started jotting down a few things. Music. I'm passionate about playing the piano and singing, and reading is something I actually loved to do as a teenager, and I stopped doing it for a few years. When I had all these little babies, I stopped reading for pleasure, and that not cultivating my own soul, that really made an impact on the amount of joy I had every day. And I'm not just talking about self-help books, because I was reading those from time to time. Christian walk books, homeschool mom books, all those types of things. I'm talking about classic literature, Jane Austen, Dickens, these things that are just like good for the soul. They just feed you as a person and help you enrich yourself as a person and broaden your horizons as a person. That is such an important example that we need to be setting for our kids, to be cultivating our own self, learning new things all the time, our own self. That's so important. So it's something I had to really, Andrew Pudewa lit a fire under me 2 years ago at Cumference, and I had to really get back to that and be like, now I realize how important it is. It's so worth the time I invest in that. And I do a lot of audiobooks while I'm doing housework because I don't feel like I have tons of time to just sit. But that has helped me so much with the amount of patience I even have with my kids. It's really amazing. So she said, think about what you're passionate about, and you need to be really passing that on to your kids. You need to tap into that and teach them everything you know about that, because that's something that you love. And when you love something and you teach somebody else about it, they're going to love it too. They're going to catch on to that zeal that you have for that subject. So that was awesome. And you can't teach your kids everything, people. You can't. My friend plays softball. She's amazing. I don't know how to play softball. I have no clue how to play softball. And so I'm like, enlisting her help. Will you do a clinic for my kids? Because we can't teach our kids everything ourselves, but we can tap into what we know how to do and our passions and pass those on, and then gain this sense of community with other families and share our passions with each other. So that's the first thing I caught from her talk. The second thing was, she said, whatever is a pain point in your homeschooling, which so many people raised their hand for math. It was funny, but she said, whatever is the most difficult part of your day, think about how you can make it more beautiful. How can you enrich that time? And maybe you need to change up how you're doing it all together. Maybe you need to add something in that makes it super fun. Like, let's have a dance party right before or in the middle of it. Something silly even. That was so helpful to think about that, to write down what's the most difficult part of our homeschool day and how can we change it. One thing I decided to do this year is we're not doing our math workbook every day. I know it's hard for some people to wrap their heads around that, but we're only doing it 2 days a week because we school 4 days a week. So for 2 days a week for math, we're actually doing something different. We'll either do like a board game, we have allowance that teaches them to count money, or we'll look through some of our, like maybe an Esborn book, learning to tell time, card games. We have a Scholastic book that has like 25 card games that teach math skills. We're going to do things like that. Maybe we'll bake a cake and practice measurements, or go around the house measuring, doorways and windows and things like that. We're going to make it fun. We're going to make games out of it. You don't actually have to sit down at a desk all the time with paper and pencil to learn math. So just little things like that, ways to enrich. And also, actually, when I mention this, there's also these storybooks my friend has told me about. I'm really excited about starting them. I'll link those below. They're for teaching math skills. One of them is called Sir Cumference, like S-I-R. Sir, like he's a knight or something, I'm not really sure. Anyways, it's something about like making the round table. You're learning math skills in this story as they figure out how to make the round table. So it's just, there's so many options out there, guys, to make school fun and to make it engaging, and getting our kids' opinions is so important. they may be little people, but they do have big ideas and they have opinions, and it's okay that they have opinions. They're not supposed to be robots. They're not a cake we're baking. It's not this specific recipe that we're mixing up and we're going to get this specific outcome. They're their own people, and they are going to be who God's destined them to be, and we get to walk beside them in that journey and yes, lead them. We are supposed to be leading them. A child left to himself brings his mother shame. We know Proverbs says that. That's not what I'm saying here. I don't mean leave your kids to themselves, to their own devices. Yes, we're going to be leading them and shepherding them, if you will, shepherding their hearts. But to view them as a whole person is so important, and I'm learning that more and more, and valuing who they are and not trying to make them just like me, and valuing what their interests are and what their likes are. So anyways, I hope that this was encouraging for y'all today. I got to go ahead and walk in the office here, but I really encourage you to go grab one of the books that I recommended. I'm going to try to link everything that I talked about below. Don't read them all in 1 week. That's overwhelming. Yeah, you need time to digest each one of those books, but they're each one so beautiful and so good. So I hope y'all all have a wonderful Friday. Bye.